Hey, thanks for tuning in today. I'm just preparing for a session. Tomorrow is part of a project. It's not a standalone workshop, helping my client create company values. Now, this client's they've been operationally, they've been running for like 20 years. Without values, they're a lovely organization, like fantastic people, really care about the community. But it's time for them in the next 20 years to step into a new identity. And so as part of that project, I'm helping them define their values. So what we've done is we put a call out to all employees. We had them answer some questions around the behaviors that they want to drive, reinforce, non-negotiables. I did this in a kind of fun way, like some metaphorical and just some fun analogy questions in there. Now, my process prior to this session tomorrow has been to look through that data. I sort of want to cast my own bias over it, but I really want to have data integrity, direct quotes. But we've got a core group of about 20 people that are representing all the employees coming together tomorrow. And the goal there is really to extract stories from them, times where the business was doing really well, to extract their experience from working at this company and to get them to share and elicit stories. Now, I've sent them a pre-video with some things to prepare. And the most important thing I kind of said to them is like, you're going to be really annoyed at me during... And one of the things I told them was that they're going to be... hearing me say, be specific throughout this, because often where values fail, in my experience, is when they are just very high level, very esoteric, and no one really understands what they mean. So what I've done for tomorrow is there's 3 quick things I wanted to share with them. And I thought this might be useful for you if you're a leader in a business, if you're running values, if you want to implement them as well. Just so sharing 3 things in terms of what their role is for tomorrow, what good values feel like, and also red flags to watch for. So I'll just quickly share this because this is going to be important for them. And it's actually a nice trial for me to share it on this podcast too. But in terms of their role, I guess the thing that I've emphasized even in that pre-video was like they are representatives of their teammates, right? So not everyone can make this session. What I really want them to do is the story sharing. So I've asked them to bring a couple of stories of where they've seen behaviors that have been proud of, like to bring examples up, stories where they've seen colleagues do things and they've been proud of seeing that, like that's stuff that you want reinforced. And I really want stories because then you can retrofit and go, what was it about that story that made you feel proud? And it's when you balance like, oh, it's in the situation they decided to do this because of X, even though this was the context, like there's so much value in that. I also want them to push back on anything they hear that feels fake or generic or too corporate speak, and really think practically about if this was the value or, we're going for this, how would this actually work day to day? And so my goal is to really like throw challenging scenarios at them, like how would this actually fit? Would this value be true? Or are you going for speed, you just want to get things done? Or are you thinking about longer term relationships? Like it's always, values is actually really about trade-offs. And people kind of forget that. They think, oh yeah, we'll do this. But yeah, but in this situation, how would an employee actually live that value? The second thing is, what does a good value feel like? I think the statements of phrases like, that's totally us. I can think of examples of this happening. Oh, this would actually help me make a decision. And new people would get this after working here a bit. Those are the kind of phrases I want to hear that, yeah, this really lands with us. This is our identity. And I think probably the most undervalued part of a value, pun intended, is that it should help you drive a decision and get alignment on a decision, and why you can justify making a decision is against a certain value that you have. That's when you know that a value is actually like useful as opposed to just a poster on the wall. The red flags, I think this is really important that I'm highlighting this with them. The red flags to watch for as we create these values are values that could apply to any company, right? So, and this is what I see. I remember years ago I actually got someone, a VA, to do some research on the ASX top 500, the ASX 500, which is the Australian Stock Exchange top 500 listed companies, to do some research on their values, and like integrity and innovation were like consistently there. So, and I think that's the irony. If you've got innovation as a value, you're not a very innovative company because you haven't thought of other ways to describe your ways of behaving. And values aren't also about sounding impressive. They're about being useful. And I think people get this confused. I think it's like an external marketing thing to have a great value, but it's actually about utility within the business. Values aren't what customers want to hear. They're about what employees need to know in terms of how do I make a decision? How do I run? What do I do in this situation? The values are like the GPS to guide you to do that. And so their overarching goal for tomorrow is to get them to even just get to a crappy first draft where we create values, like Phrases, it could be a single word, I don't know. They'll get to decide that. I've got examples of like really cool, interesting company values from a variety of different organizations, just sharing what those could look like. It could even be one value that just is overarching. But yeah, it's really about building something they're excited to live by. And then I think there's also a bit of copywriting flair that comes into it in terms of determining what it is. But what I'm so excited about, and the reason I've been really kicking this off with using stories and getting them to bring real examples, is because it's in the conversation. We'll hear phrases. And I guess my goal, and what I love to do, I do this all the time, like even just in general conversations, is like, oh, that's a cool phrase. Like just capturing those interesting phrases that come through organically. They aren't just crappy thesaurus AI words or phrases. They're actual real phrases that come from real stories from this group of people. So it's going to be a really great day. I'm excited to host it, to see what we create. And then obviously the next stage then is like landing it, getting it approved, and then operationalizing it in the business, which is probably that harder actually than defining the values. So let me know your thoughts if you've created values. Like, do you have any favorite company ones? That's it for me today. I better get back to finalizing all this. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.